Hey guys, welcome back. Lately, I got lots of questions, requests, and I also had problems in the past with the following line. It's Ginger Jobava system. It's called like that because Jobava started playing it like a couple of years ago with a great success. Right after that, you had a couple of really nice courses about this system. Neiman made it as well. Some other good players, of course, Ginger GM, did it. So basically, it became very popular and still very effective. And then playing all these bullet and blitz games by myself, I also realized there are certain rules in this variation that I simply didn't like and where I used to have some problems. So I said, let me just come up with something interesting, but still very productive. And I came up with a move just like that. It's unexpectedly powerful and remarkably effective. It's third move, bishop d7. So let's go. It begins with d4. And after you play d4, you know how much you hate when you play knight f6, and all these guys play either bishop f4, in which case you can go with g6, c6 and stuff. But when they play knight c3, you know what did I tell you here? I even made a shorts about it. When the knight c3 comes in these systems, you simply have to go with d5. Simply, you gotta go with d5, and you gotta say, okay, we gotta react against this system. So no more e4, but then after bishop f4, they have this beautiful, first of all, I would call it London bishop on f4, plus they would have like great control over the e5 square. And that's the way it is, and this is something that we really have to cover here. So after like bishop f4, I was trying g6, e6 lately. I've noticed that lots of top players go with a6 followed by h6, delaying e6 because they would like to stop the g4. But then, because of my bullet practice, I just decided to try out something new. And found that someone, I believe it's Donchenko, strong GM who plays the King's Indian, came up with some bishop d7 move. It's a very interesting line. Why bishop d7? First of all, you know that all these guys who go for Ginger Jobava system, they would like to go with knight b5 and they would like to go after the pawn on c7. That's why you can't play knight c6 because you lose. That's why you can't play knight bd7 because you lose. That's why most of you are learning more difficult way and losing to these knight b5 tricks, play a6. And I don't mind. It's one of the main systems. It's so nice. It's okay, but still, it's pretty boring. And then I came up with this bishop d7 idea, which is mainly aimed against knight b5 and all those kinds of tricks. But at the same time, with bishop d7, your plan remains the same. So, yes, you did prevent knight b5 by white, but at the same time, your ideas are e6, c5, a6. e6 to be able to break in the center with c5. a6, sooner or later you'd like to go with that c5, and when you do it, you don't want to face this knight b5, even though knight b5, as you're going to see in this video, is not such a big threat. So after bishop d7, I covered three moves. Covered the most common thing in practice, e3. Covered knight f3, which is another logical thing. And covered what lots of guys who are unfamiliar with the main ideas in Ginger and Jobava and they like to play original chess, go with f3 followed by e4. You know what? Before they come up with e4 and break in the center, we gotta be the one who's gonna break first. And that's why we play c5. We play c5, breaking in the center and just threatening to take on d4 afterwards. So what do they have? I played like a whole bunch of games with the bishop d7, so mainly the whole video is going to be based on my games and from my experience playing this mainly bullet and blitz games. So e3, this is the most solid thing. What if d takes c5? D takes c5, they just lost control of the center. You should go e6 to be able to pick the pawn back. And I'm gonna show you a game of mine. Bishop d6 is nothing. You just take and play queen b6, going after the b2 and d6, and your position is already much better. I remember playing one blitz game, queen d2, queen b2, of course. I don't wanna take only the pawn back, but I also wanna break their pawns. Queen b7, castles, and queen d6. You know what? Material is equal, but somehow their king is exposed, and everything, absolutely everything, on the king's side is undeveloped. I believe that black must be better here. Another thing is, instead of going with d takes c5, e6, bishop d6, in one of my blitz games happened bishop e3. That happened in a bullet game, and there is a tendency of some guys to keep some material that they won out of the openings and to finish you off afterwards in the game. Here it doesn't work. You just play simple queen c7, get a pawn back. Or you can play knight c6, threatening d4 at some point, rook c8, d4 followed by bishop c5, a3, bishop e7, b4. I played castle. You know what? I just gave up on getting the pawn back. I didn't want to get a pawn back. Of course, I could with the queen c7, and I just said, okay, they still have problems with exposed king and absolutely terrible king side and the minor pieces on the king side. Also, I can't consider bishop on e3 being any better because it just blocked the bishop, light square bishop on f1. So, let's make a long story short, any d takes c5 is just an easy game for us. Then e4. There is a line that Neiman covered in one of his courses with early e4, but it's not this line. It's something like when you play bishop f4 and they go c5, he covered d4, knight e4, knight e4, d takes c4, d takes c5, you go like this, c3, queen c5, queen a4, knight c6, queen e4, and that I played lots of times in blitz. But that's not the same line, and that's not the same approach, especially in this one with the bishop d7. So if they play after f3, c5, e4, relax, sit, you know, like title into your chair and say, okay, I can relax. I watched the video of Big Mayo and I know what am I supposed to do. So you should take on d4. If queen takes knight c6, d4, and I'll show you, I literally won 5 games like this. They all go with knight b5, threatening nasty knight c7. You play e5, kicking the bishop away, a6, kicking the knight away, and bishop e4. Now if they don't want to lose the queen, they gotta play c3. When I take on c3, they will lose the knight, and that's how I won 5 games at least. So, analyze something, and knight e5 turns out to be the best, but you play rook c8, preventing knight c7 again, and afterwards you want to go with e6, kicking the knight away, and e5, or e5 straight away. And finally, if e4, c takes d5, and they go knight b5, which looks kind of scary at first point, you play bishop e5, and knight c6. Now we're threatening queen a5, and we just want to win the piece. So they just have to react. So if queen d4, queen a5, you win a piece. If they play anything else, I'm just going to, well, it's kind of difficult for them. Look at this. They can't get a pawn back on d4. They have problems. Of course, they can play bishop c6, b takes c6, and queen d4, but this position is just easily better for us. Even after a simple d takes e4, I'm just taking the pawn on e4. I'm up a pawn, and I'm going to remain up a pawn till the rest of the game. And finally, if f3, c5, e3, which happened to me most of the times. Now you're wondering. Now they would like to go for both. Knight b5, knight c7, and d takes c5. We go a6, preventing that. D takes and d6. And when they play bishop d6, I gotta show you a game where I, you know, like, come stupid. I played queen b6, threatening here, here, and here, and I was so proud of this. The guy played queen d4. I said, okay, so what? Let me just take first this one. And then he came up with this stupid trick, knight d5. I lost the game. So because of this, after c takes d6, you play knight c6 without giving them possibility to play queen d4 at some point, and of course securing yourself an easy queen b6 when you want. After rook a c8, rook f to d8, you just can go back with the bishop here, play knight e8, knight e6. They have problems with a weak pawn on e3. b2 is always hanging as, you know, like it's hovering as a weakness in the air, but it's not about, and it should we take it or not. I'm interested in getting the pawn back and getting like much better development for the rest of the game. That's it about f3. That's it about fork move f3. It's time to check knight f3. Knight f3 is a logical developing move with taking full control over e5 square. Of course, we'll go with e6, they go e3, we go a6, they go bishop d3, and we go c5. It's very interesting. More or less, it's one of the main ideas of Jobava system, although they do not have an early g4 possibility here. Usually when the light square bishop is locked, they want to go with g4 and g5. Here, that's not a possibility. And after castles, you just go knight c6. Interesting enough, engine says c4. I'm never suggesting you to play c4 because locking the game like this absolutely makes no sense if the knight wasn't on f3, because then they go f3 and d4. Here, it could make a bit of a sense because they would like to go with some knight e5, bishop f3 and d4, knight e5, f3 and d4, but then you play bishop b4. Although this is an engine approach, and engines have very concrete approaches, and they have like way better systems of playing and trading these systems than us. Instead, I'm suggesting you to play knight c6, and then I'm about to show you my top-notch idea, the one thanks to which I won so many games in a very, I'd say, entertaining style. So let me just show you. So we go knight c6, and they can play knight e5. That's very interesting. Usually they would like to go, if we go for castle, with queen f3 and queen h3, going for the attack. Here, that's not a case. After they go with knight e5, we just take on d4. Now if they take on d4, we take by knight. They take by knight, we take by bishop, finally taking advantage of the bishop being on d7. And after this, queen b6. And boom, what's happening? Well, one pawn is about to defend. A pawn is about to fall. So, after knight c6, your opponents who are just familiar with this type of games, by the way, they can play queen e2 to go with some e4 because, boom, you c4 and you trap the piece. So they just have to go with d takes c5, bishop c5, and these guys will go for castle, for e4. A very interesting thing happened here. I found so many games like this. Almost no one played castle, and castle is a specialty of mine. Of course, I'm not that special and I'm not that smart. I just played some games, and here and there, right after these bullet and blitz games, I go and check these lines with engines. So after e4, I was wondering why everyone in the database went for d takes e4 and d4. Can I play something better? And I was very surprised when the engine showed short castle. And to my surprise, I was like, what the hell is happening? Why would I go back with the knight? Usually this knight goes on d7 and, you know, like fighting against the pawn on e5 with some f6 ideas. And then all of a sudden, engine showed knight h5. That's the point of the whole system. Knight h5, believe it or not. I know you're wondering, so what? I don't get it, Maya. What's the point of knight h5? First of all, I gotta tell you following thing. Almost not a pilot, most of these guys go with bishop c1 or bishop d2. There were a few guys who tried bishop h7, thought probably that they were about to win the game. And after knight g5, king g6, because we have to defend the knight. And now, look at this. There is only one move, and yet no one played it against me. It's queen to d3, f5, bishop is hanging, also knight as well. They go here, you take, check, and perpetual check, because you can't go back with the king because they will mate you. So it's perpetual check. Everyone, absolutely everyone, almost an autopilot, go with queen g4, and I win the game with knight e5. A very Simple and yet very effective. So just like you see, that happens, but if you remember my words, I'm going to repeat the whole line again. If you remember my words, knight f3, a6, a3, a6, once again a6 because we're about to play c5 and we don't want to face any knight b5, but even knight b5 wouldn't be that difficult. You can consider taking on b5 or playing knight a6. Doesn't matter, I prefer a6, c5, castles, knight c6, and when they take and play e4, point is in castle. After e5, knight h7, you remember my words because I said almost on autopilot, most of these guys just move the bishop back. And when they move this bishop back to a detour c1, they now really threaten some knight g5 or bishop h7. And then you go g6. It's a specialty. No longer bishop h7, no longer knight g5. But now you're saying, okay, Maya, but now you're just weakening the dark squares. What the hell are you doing? How can you teach your students to play like this? Well, guys, you don't have to worry. Relax and go with the queen c7. A beautiful exchange sack. A beautiful exchange sack where you go for what? For a potential weakness on e5. For sacking an exchange and bringing the rook here so you can break with f6. And after rook e1, that happened to me in a couple of games, f6 breaking in the center. They gotta take knight f6, threatening knight g4. They go h3 and you go like this. You cannot imagine how nice these positions are. You threaten queen g3. You threaten knight f4. You threaten some, I don't know what else, maybe some queen b6 at some point, but definitely queen g3 is a threat. You can just put this position on the board. For example, play against the engines, play against your friends, and you'll see that they will have lots of problems against you. And finally, after bishop d7, we just have to check the line with e3. E3 makes sense because it's one of those most flexible things. Of course, we go with e6 to go with c5. And now, I'm not going to show you knight f3 because knight f3 just goes into the something that I show you. I just showed you. So if knight f3, e6, e3, a6, which basically means that if e3, e6, they go knight f3, we're going to be going with a6 to be able to break with c5. In these positions with e3 and e6, I want to show you a very common approach by Ginger Jobava players. They go with g4. And they just say, okay, finally, you just locked the light square bishop so we can go with this g4. No, man, you cannot. Why? Because I got a bishop b4. I'm pinning your knight. I'm threatening knight e4 at some point. And look at this. They have difficulties. They have difficulties because I'll show you how did I play a couple of my games. On f3, you just break c5, and you have an easy game. You have c takes d4, knight c6, queen b6, so many nice ideas. Lots of guys went for knight g on e2, like feel free, buddy, to take on g4, and then I'll show you who's the boss on the king side. Well, no one so far has proven that. And actually, it was quite actually the opposite. I took on g4, and after rook g1, I played h5. And when they play h3, probably being so, like proud of themselves, I just came up with a beautiful g5, kicking the bishop away, getting rid of the weakness on g7, and remaining up a pawn. They took, I captured, I played a couple of games like this. And I just have to say that with the bishop pair, without any problems on the king side, I want to play queen e7 followed by long castle, and black is absolutely fine. Another thing apart from g4 is, hey, I'm really bothered by the bishop b4 ideas, which happened, for example, after g4. So let me just go with a3, in which case I'm just going to prevent bishop b4. Well, if you do that, my friend, then I'll go with c5. And when I go with c5, what am I doing? I'm breaking the center. I'm threatening c takes d4. I want to develop my knight. I want to play queen b6. When they go knight b5, you have two possibilities. You can take on b5. You can take on b5 and go knight bd7, followed by a6, queen b6 with normal chess. They just have on the paper the bishop pair. You can always eliminate that by bishop d6. And you can go with knight a6. That's another thing because we threaten to play queen a5 or to play first knight e4 A very annoying position. So when they play c3, you play c4, attacking the knight. a4, bishop e7. And now this is the last moment for them to do something. And if knight d6, bishop d6, queen b6, threatening the pawn and the bishop, when they play like this, you go here. And now they have to go with bishop d6 and position is drawn. It's an interesting way to repeat the moves. Otherwise, they're just about to lose the pawn on a4 and they would be lost. So that's another system. Third possibility is bishop d3. Bishop d3 is a nice logical developing move. Don't ever forget any knight g on e2, you just trap the bishop. If d takes e5, you capture by bishop, knight f3 castles. And here, I like the following system. Of course, you can play knight c6 and play quite a nice and logical position, but I like bishop c6. I want to prevent e4 for the time being and release the d7 for my knight to go there. So if knight e5, I'll go back to go after the knight on e5, because you know what? Those who play knight e5 here, they would like to go with queen f3 and queen h3. If that happens, if they already imagine having the queen on f3, you're under the pressure. Or, let's put it this way, you're under a very severe attack. That's why kick the knight away. Kick the knight away. And I'll show you a game. I was attacking the knight. The guy played queen g3, defending the knight. I played knight h5. He put all his hopes into queen h4 because h7 is hanging mate h5 as well. And I played g6. Now I was threatening to take the knight. He captured. I captured on f4 by knight, and I absolutely had a nice game. Just like you see in all these positions, we're just having a very pleasant lines. And finally, if knight f3, you know that we go a6, transposing into the fourth move, knight f3. So it's time to check the final move, knight b5. Well, guys, we just played third move, bishop d7, to fight successfully against knight b5. You capture, play c6, and go bishop d6. I believe with this video, you're just going to solve your Ginger Jobava problems almost forever, and you won't have any more problems. Also, by playing third move bishop d7, you're just putting your game into the direction you would like to have, not then. Hopefully you're just going to enjoy your games against the system from now on. And if you're interested in purchasing any of the files, PGNs of the videos on the channel, including this one, let me know by my email. Thanks and see you next time.